Pete, stop schmoozing. All right. Thank you all for coming to our second community outreach meeting. Before I get Bellwether Architects up here to talk about some of their conceptual designs, Jane Lowe from the library, the Russell Memorial Library, would like to share a few words about libraries and how they work and why.
How we work? I'm not talking about that. Oh, yikes.
Yeah, you want to be up.
So thank you everyone for coming out tonight. As we gather tonight to discuss the evolution of this community building project, I want to first remind everyone that tomorrow night there is a Mount Abe School District meeting at Holly Hall at 6 o'clock in Bristol.
It's at Mount Abe in the large cafeteria.
They moved it. They moved it at Mount Abe in the large cafeteria at 6 o'clock. And then Thursday night there is a meeting for the town plan.
Yep.
And I don't know where that is.
Firehouse.
Firehouse.
Yep.
6 o'clock.
7.
7 o'clock.
I think. Is there any members of the
It's not on the
planning commission?
calendar, so. Okay. As Monkton is one of the fastest growing communities in this area, we're all thinking about the future. And this has been going on for quite some time. The town plan documents cite a 2016 town-wide survey which demonstrated the desire for a central meeting place in our village area. The Russell Memorial Library trustees believe a new library can be that place. And we aren't the only Monktonites who think so. At our last meeting with Bellwether a month or so ago, we received feedback from those present, and I'd like to share just a few of the sentiments that we gathered that evening. One community member wrote, "Besides our school, Monkton lacks community infrastructure. We need a place for all ages." And another said, "As a commuter town, Monkton needs a place to gather and meet each other face to face. What better place than a library to come together for all manner of reasons and events? If the goal is to strengthen community, we need a space that allows for that." Another person commented, "I want to have pride in my town center and have a central place for the community to gather. We need this. It's what's missing in Monkton." And from a local business owner, "In this age of electronic communication and social media, libraries are more important than ever. To strengthen your muscles, you exercise, and to strengthen your mind, you exercise your brain by reading." For more than 48 years, the Russell Memorial Library has opened the minds of Monkton residents to the wonders of reading, learning, and creativity. Over that time, we have been fortunate to retain skilled and resourceful librarians who've made the most of the space and all of its limitations. But now we feel it's time for an upgrade. The building committee and Bellwether Architects are helping provide us with the opportunity to build a fully functional library that will allow librarians to expand their resources and meet the current and future needs of all of our residents. And now is the time. With questions swirling around the fates of our local schools and with our growing senior population, it's imperative that we come together, that we collaborate to create a space for learning and connection that will serve our community, no matter the changes around us. Our vision for a new library is to create more than just a place to house books. We want to build a community hub. Right now we have comfortable seating for one person, and children sit on the floor for story hour. Our book stacks are not accessible to people with limited mobility. Evening events cannot accommodate more than 10 people. Imagine instead a welcoming space where people of all ages gather to connect. Imagine comfortable reading areas for both kids and adults, and a book collection that's easily accessible regardless of one's mobility. Imagine a media center with computers, Wi-Fi, and printers, plus a children's section, a place for teens to study, and a programming area for adult classes, community groups, and events for all ages. Imagine having another place to learn. Some of us already have started to imagine that. A group of Monkton's Mount Abe students were surveyed and expressed hope for a new library that would offer a gender-neutral, Wi-Fi-enabled space for weekday afternoon visits to work on school projects, to study, and to talk. The Moncton Town Plan says that in the next 5 to 20 years, trends indicate there will be more of a demand for facilities and services for a growing senior population that includes social opportunities. For our residents who don't have children in school, it can be hard to connect. We need community, and we need a place. Catching up with neighbors on 2 Saturdays a month at recycling just doesn't cut it. Inspired by these needs, the library trustees have begun a capital campaign to help reach our goals. And I'm happy to report the Moncton Girl Scouts were the first to make a generous donation. So far, we have raised about 10% of our goal of $100,000, but every dollar counts. So right now, I encourage you to think about our library's value. On paper, the library provides about $28 in value annually per capita, roughly the same price as one hardcover book. For the price of just one book, each and every Moncton resident gets access to over 4,000 hardcovers, 100 audiobooks, and 7,000 ebooks, plus personalized recommendations from our librarians. Also available are board games, passes to Echo, Shelburne Museum, Shelburne Farms, Vermont State Parks, and Vermont Historic Sites. You have access to newspapers and the Vermont Online Library, as well as free online continuing education classes. All that plus programming. We have weekly game night, poetry club, children's story time, special events. The list goes on, and will indeed go on and on once we begin pursuing state and local grants for programming and amenities in the new space. More than all that, though, is the value the library brings to our community. It's been proven that investing in community facilities has a positive impact on home values and property taxes. We know that investing in community builds community, and we want you to know that by investing in our library, you invest in lifelong enrichment for yourself, your family, your neighbors, and the rest of our unique Moncton community. There are 3 ways you can help support this vision. You can donate, you can volunteer, and you can vote yes on town meeting day. By donating money equivalent to the price of one hardcover book, you can help us fulfill the dream of an updated library to serve our town for generations to come. At the back of the room where Melanie Cote is sitting, we have more information at a table, and I encourage you to visit her. And thank you, everyone, for your time and consideration.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Leah McGavran.
Chris Huston.
And we are Bellwether Architects, and we're very excited to be here. This is a terrific project. We're very excited about it. Just a brief description of what's going to happen tonight. We're going to present, it's a lot of slides, but we're going to go through them pretty quickly. Some of them are a repeat from the last meeting, so we're going to show some of them again tonight, but we might go a little bit faster tonight. And then at the end, we're going to present 2 conceptual designs for the proposed town offices, community center, and library. And we're going to also, before we present those, we're going to be passing out some 11 by 17 sheets. They're going to have space for you guys to comment. Tonight is all about, well, first conveying some information, but then hearing from you. It's one of several meetings where we really want your feedback because it really matters. We're trying very hard to design something that works for you as a community. So your feedback is really helpful to us.
So with that, we're going to jump right in. As Leah mentioned, the structure, the outline of tonight's presentation is very similarly structured to our last one, where we'll be going into some quick background. Why is it appropriate for a community center now? Thank you. And then we're going to jump into a little bit of the context of your existing site, your beautiful site. And as Leah mentioned, we're going to jump right into the design concepts, talk about the project budget, where we stand, and what our next steps are. And then we'll have pizza and open it up to questions and conversation. So if that sounds good to everyone, we'll jump right in with a quick background. As many of you know, we'll just touch on these really quickly. You've already seen presented for town vote on 3 separate occasions over roughly the last 10 years. In terms of the overall timeline, in 2006, the town decided to buy the parcel, and then sort of fast forwarding through a number of these iterations, it was 6 years ago that the last bond vote occurred, so there has been some real time and consideration to sort of step back, hit the pause button, regroup, and this current municipal building committee has been at it for over 2 years, about 2 years, and very thoughtfully sort of preparing outreach efforts, questions, and so on to get your feedback, such as tonight. Now, moving forward, just really quickly, we were hired last August. We've been working with the committee, and we will be doing one more outreach leading up to the March bond vote in 2020.
So why a community center now? You've been through several attempts before. Why is now different? Well, for one thing, you clearly need a new town hall. The building is deteriorated, you have no water, the images kind of speak for themselves. The library, as you've heard just moments earlier, you as a community could benefit terribly from a space that actually has appropriate storage for books and places where the kids can be and where people can hang out. Clearly, the pictures once again speak for themselves. And now you have this beautiful parcel. You have purchased a parcel, and it is just waiting for a new community center on it. And you've also approved municipal building fund money, I believe three years in a row. You have a need for community shared spaces, as you've heard just a little while ago. There are also many new programmatic possibilities associated with the new building, including the library and a new community space. So what have we heard from you so far? There have been lots of avenues for getting feedback. There have been surveys, there have been meetings,
Open houses, including our last meeting roughly a month ago.
Yep. This is what we've heard. We have heard that you folks as a community would like an environmentally responsible building. You are all concerned about the tax burden and the cost of the new building. We also heard that we want the new community center town offices to be historically appropriate and to retain the historic village character. Design flexibility in the spaces, that's also a cost issue and for flexible uses. We heard that you do in fact want a town hall, a library, and a community center. These are all needs that the town has. We also heard in particular from the last meeting when we presented, a lot of the feedback was that the building should be set back from the street. It should take advantage of the beautiful views on the site. And that the emphasis should be on community space for multiple uses, not just for a meeting, but perhaps there are lots of other opportunities that can be taken advantage of. It should be a welcoming, open and inspiring building with lots of natural light. It should have an outdoor patio space that can be accessed from the building so that you can use it as an inside-outside space as well. And that there should be quality construction.
In terms of, and we did touch on this last time, so we'll run through this reasonably quickly. In terms of the importance and sort of the natural beauty of your site, you have owned it now for roughly 13 years. It sits very comfortably right on Monkton Ridge Road with commanding views to both, really in all directions, south, but your east and westerly views are really quite stunning. This illustrates that you have this very formal village edge that we want to be respectful of and acknowledge. This view is looking from the south, looking north. This obviously is our parcel. As I just mentioned, the views are really quite incredible. How do we best design the building to fully take advantage of that while at the same time acknowledging the wonderful natural features, which is fundamentally sustainable design. Taking advantage of the solar access, views and perhaps prevailing winds as well. And then your site is quite steeply sloped. How do we best place the building to take the most advantage of that? And we'll be talking about that further as we get into the design concepts.
And I just want to pause to just remind you that we're going to be handing out some 11 by 17 pieces of paper, and they have an image on both sides and on each side is one of the concepts that we're just about to present. And feel free at any time to take notes, comments, things you like about one versus the other, things you don't like, whatever. This is an opportunity to give us your feedback. And we'll also be summarizing some of what we think are some of the benefits of one option versus the other.
And just quickly, this, in terms of obtaining your feedback, this is one of those, what we had last time were the note cards, and then we also had, we captured thoughts up on the flip chart. And we thought that it was really a very valuable and helpful tool. If you don't want to get, stand up and raise your hand and make a comment, this is a great way to write your comments down. We'd like to collect them afterwards and be able to have the building committee read them and decipher what is important to you. So that's sort of the purpose, is not only to have something you could take notes on, but also if you have comments for us, we'd really welcome them.
Yeah. So we're going to show you two design concepts, and we hope that this reflects some of the feedback that we have heard. Just a quick reminder that we've looked at a lot of historical precedents for this. For what we're proposing, we've looked at the styles of different townhalls, we've looked at particular features, and we've also looked at what new buildings look like. We've gone through many, many iterations. There were several iterations, there were actually 5 total that have been done up until the time that we were hired. And then we have gone through, And then we have gone through multiple variations where we've looked at, in particular, 1 story versus 2. We've looked at different programmatic arrangements. We very soon realized that just keeping a 1-story floor plan meant that it looked very massive from the street. It was a very long or very deep building, and also working with the slope, that meant that fair amount of the building was out of the ground, which made it look even more massive. So we very quickly got down to a 2-story option where the ground floor or the lower floor is in the ground, and that we felt took advantage of the site. So we've been through many iterations, and you'll see in the next two, in the 2 concepts we present, is that was one thing that was consistent between the 2 of them. Yes, so here are 2 options that we are going to present. We're calling one the cross gable, and we're calling it that because it basically has 2 wings that cross the main gable of the main part of the building.
And just for orientation purposes, north is up on the page, so Monkton Ridge Road is to the right-hand side of each of these. So you're looking at the Adirondacks off to the left, to give everyone.
And this is the front of the building. And then we're calling this one a simple rectangle. It's not quite a simple rectangle, but it's fairly simple. Okay, so the cross gable.
Just real quick on the site plan, you'll notice that, and we'll talk about the similarities between both options, but one of the things that you mentioned earlier was we heard the feedback that you'd like the building slightly set back from Monkton Ridge Road. So you'd see that on both of these options. We're placing it on the site to take the best advantage of the topography. As you start to head west, the site drops off fairly quickly. So there's a little bit of a sweet spot sort of as you head west from Monkton Road. Also, having parking biased to the north does a few things. One is it allows for shared parking with the church. It also provides the prominence of your municipal, your beautiful public building without having parking directly in front of it, while at the same time making your entrance very clear.
So how the floor plan works, just in general, I'm just going to highlight general areas of the plan. This is the lower level with the library, which opens out to the patio to the west. On both floors, you see that there's a bathroom and elevator corridor up on the north side. The community room or community meeting area is on the second floor. We're on the main level towards the west, so you enter from the front. There's stairs down to the library, or you continue past the stairs. We're looking right through into the community room, and then out to the views of the mountains. And then this whole area down here is the town offices with the vault at the center.
And we'll give you a quick, 3D tour of both of the exterior and the interior in just a moment.
Yeah. In a very quick moment,
yeah,
actually. So this is the front front view with the town offices to the left, and these are the bathrooms and the elevator corridor wing. This is a view coming around towards the west. This is the rear of the building, obviously very open to the views and to the sunlight, with some built-in shading.
One thing to point out that was brought to our attention in terms of having this building both reflect the traditional architecture of Monkton on the street-facing side, but also have the ability to sort of flexibly evolve into a more contemporary building as it's on the westerly-facing side of the building. So as you come around the building, it may have you'll see a slightly different expression.
Yeah, and just to build on that a little bit, we were given a rather a challenge. It was to make a compact building with a very efficient floor plan that looked traditional, that had everything that everybody wanted and was inexpensive and really tight square footage, and it had to be inspirational.
And it had to be environmentally, appropriately
right.
Forward-thinking, forward-looking.
Yes. So you'll see in both, hopefully some of the images that we show you will convey some of that inspiration. I think the plan speaks for itself in terms of its compactness and the square footage, which we really got tight. So that's the back view, the rear view. There are some stairs. So this is the main community meeting space with the library below, an outdoor patio, and the patio can be accessed from a door here in the meeting space down and around. And then just coming full circle, we're now at the south, approaching it from the south. And so this is the view right as you enter. And just to give you a context, this is the door frame right here as you enter into the vestibule. And you are looking down through the hall out to the mountains through the community meeting space. And then this is the stairwell going down into the library. So you actually look down into the library. And as you go down those stairs, you would see, again, you would have a vista of the mountains. And this is the meeting room that's associated with the town offices, but it's also accessible to the main meeting space. And the idea there is that you could extend some of the meeting into that smaller meeting room.
So again, based on maximizing flexibility of the overall building, both for the community room, the town office function, and the library, we wanted to make sure that these spaces were as flexible as possible. So for example, the library, you might be able to take the bookcases on wheels, on casters, push them off to the side, and then create an actual meeting space in the library that's at grade that could be accessed directly out to the west.
This is a view inside the community meeting room looking out to the mountains.
We will point out that we're showing two different orientations of the community meeting space. And so it's, again, it's a very flexible arrangement, whether a select board table might be set up in this arrangement or on the north wall. There are two different scenarios.
This is looking back from, with your back to that large curtain wall, window wall. Looking back into, this is the small meeting space that can be accessed from either the town offices or from the community meeting space. It's looking back to the front entry. These are the stairs going down to the library.
How many people does that seat?
Approximately 50. And this is a bit similar to the shot we showed you before, but we just wanted to clarify that when you, as you're going down to the library, you can also look straight out through to the mountains. So this would be a very, very light-filled, open, kind of an exciting space to be in. This is at the bottom of the stairs as you enter the library.
Just to mention that we're very cognizant of having nighttime functions so that the building can be sort of segmented for nighttime use, whether it's for the town office on the main level or the library on the lower level.
This is just a view inside the library looking out. This couple standing there and talking there through this whole meeting. This is the second option, called the simple rectangle. You'll notice a lot of similarities, but basically it's a way of compacting the plan a little bit further, making the building envelope a little tighter. It sits a little bit differently on the site because it's longer. Style-wise, it's very similar, you'll see. And
this particular drawing of the roof plan shows solar panels across the whole southerly facing east-west roof. The other option, the cross cable can also support solar. The floor plan's not a whole lot different, except that you'll notice this organization doesn't have the wings to either side. So basically you enter, and as you're walking back to the community space, the hallway's a little bit longer. The bathrooms and elevator are directly off of the hallway. And then this is the town offices all along the southern side of the building. And the library just lays out just a little bit differently. You come down the stairs here, there's a bathroom and mechanical and elevator space here. And then entry out to the patio on these two sides. There's a little bit more light in the library in that there's light from this directly on the south wall. And then we're just going to go around similar to the last series of slides. On the north side.
Well, there's a couple again.
I'm telling you, they're in deep conversation. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we've been discussing with the building committee that there will be numerous options or opportunities for residents to volunteer for aspects of the building. Excuse me. In this case, that exterior patio could be one of those great opportunities for the community to come together and build a feature such as that, using skilled labor and talent that's here in Moncton. We're going to hold questions until the end, if that's okay with everyone, because we're going to be done in
we're almost
just a few
done.
more minutes, if that's okay.
A similar view, you see the hallway's just a little bit longer, but again, you get the view straight through the meeting space. You notice that the orientation is a little bit different inside the meeting room. The town offices to the left. So in the other scenario, and they could both work either way, but in the other scenario, the desk was up front, or the selectmen would sit up front and the chairs were organized the other way. Looking back out through to the main entry, The small meeting room, in this case, is off to the side. Again, very similar perspective, view down into the library as you walk down the stairs, but also looking up into the community space. View into the library, view of the library, and out.
We have included that one retaining wall that you see on the south side of the building. It's possible that we could just sort of naturally grade the land, but at the same time, that retaining wall allows us to sort of manipulate the ground so that we can have a nice outdoor gathering space.
And I just want to, I think it's important to point out that that much of the library in these both scenarios are in the ground, but the whole end of the whole western piece of the library has lots and lots of natural light. So I think it's a very exciting space, actually. We just want to remind you that of some of the things that we have heard from you and that we hope you see in these building plans. So to review.
So in looking at these two options, you might say, well, there really isn't a tremendous amount that is different in variation between the two, but we just wanted to touch on the fact that, as Leah mentioned, between some of the earlier design concepts that we were sort of playing around with on the site, this is overall, it's a very, very efficient building, which leads very much to environmental and sustainable approaches that are also going to be, in our opinions, very easy to achieve with the right solar orientation of the building, the overall building mass and form. Leah mentioned the architectural style that we've been hearing from the community for a number of different iterations from past bond votes. We're taking advantage of the natural views on both options, both sort of in the building, but also sort of past the building, if you will. The vertical connection between both floors, we've tried to make them as seemingly as sort of as one as possible. And we will have the elevator, the building will be entirely ADA accessible. And then looking at the arrangement of parking, it's a very simple arrangement, and therefore it's it's logical, and it also is as cost effective as it can be. We're looking at, or we're utilizing the slope, as we mentioned, to transition from the main level to the lower level, while sort of earth berming the library, which means that, you know, from an insulation standpoint, it's going to perform really well. And then we've got that outdoor gathering space to the west. The relationship to the street is really, really important. You'll see both of these sort of gable ends that are presented are of a scale that is very common along Monkton Road. And that also ties in with the general overall massing, making both options inherently sustainable.
Some of the differences between the two. The cross gable has a different look from the street. It does have a little bit more wall surface area. It has a benefit of having more natural light, because on the wing in particular, in the town offices, you get light from 3 sides. I think it has a very balanced look visually from the street. And one of the peculiar benefits of this plan is that the bathrooms are in a separate wing. They're not directly on the hallway, which they are in the other scheme. The simple rectangle has a more compact form. It's got a larger southern roof for solar panels. And as I mentioned, the restrooms are open to the hallway.
So just a few more items. We have the project budget that we've discussed. We showed you this slide last time, which is these are all the pieces that sort of go into making up a budget for a municipal project. There are all these pieces that make a municipal project different than residential construction.
You want me to do this slide? I'm happy. So this is a question of how do we pay for the community center? So there's three sources of funding. The municipal building fund that we've put together over the last 3 years. It's got about $100,000 in it, so that's a piece. The library capital campaign, we don't know what they're going to throw into the pot. And then we'll get a bond from the Vermont Bond Bank. The bonds are 20 years at 2.6%. So it's a great rate. They're funny because the bonds, you pay a fixed amount of principal every year and decreasing interest as you go. So, which is unfortunate for us because it means that the very first payment that we have, which won't be until 2022, will be $115,000. And it'll go down to about $82,000. Estimated project bond required $1.6 million. I mean, it's a big chunk of change. Service the bond with in a bunch of different ways. The first one is retiring the long-term debt. We're actually at a place, Monkton is with our long-term debt is really, all of the items that we have there are coming due. We're going to engage some more debt shortly here for a truck, but about half a truck. And but all the other debt that we have is going to close out in either 2021 or 2022. There's a concept of selling or leasing the existing town offices and library. There'll be an opportunity for new businesses to move into the town of Monkton. Grants, we've talked about them. Eliminate funding of municipal building fund. If we actually go and get a bond, we no longer have to cut in the $40,000 that we've been paying towards the municipal building fund. And then an increase, you knew that one was coming, an increase in the municipal property taxes. Projected tax increase, I always have trouble with this one. It's about 4.5 cents on the tax dollar. That's about a quarter of a point less than we were in 2013, despite the fact we're at 1.6 instead of $1 million. That's what we were in 2013. So for every $100,000 of property tax, you would pay an extra $45 a year. Average monthly property tax. Average monthly property value is $270,000. You'd end up paying $121.50 a year. Those are all pretty sketchy numbers. I mean, they're all approximate numbers. We're talking about what's the tax going to look like in 2022. What's the projected tax decrease? You know, we're going to increase it by 4.5 cents. Well, by getting rid of by stop funding the municipal building fund, we'd save 1.6 cents off of our property tax. By retiring the debt for the 2018 Western Star dump truck, when that retires, that'll knock 1.7 cents off of our property taxes.
Steve,
Sir,
have those, the last bit you mentioned there, is that already reflected in the 4.5?
no.
Okay, so, good, okay.
So just quickly, this is our last piece here, timeline and next steps. Here's where we are in November. We have a few more months to get up to our March bond vote. We will be basically going, here, I'll do this one. Here's where we are now. We have one more presentation in February to inform residents of where we're headed. After this meeting, we are hoping to arrive at a consensus of our direction forward, which would allow us to then take these designs, go to our independent cost estimator to get a detailed cost estimate, to then be prepared with a very reliable number to come to a bond vote in March. After which time, and after that, we would carry on with development of the design and ultimately into the construction phase.
Let's have some pizza.
Yeah, pizza. And then and after you've taken a few minutes to eat, we'll have comments, discussions, and questions.
Thank you.
Quick upon it, these two options at the same price.
Nothing much changes, does it? Except that the cost.
And I've got to ask, you know, it needs to be asked, but it's like, I didn't see a square footage.
Oh my gosh, I must have known that you were coming.
So there's some funny things about it. I mean,
it's not like they can go into our current town. Our current town hall's like, it's all affordable, so like, how do you determine what's a good deal?
That's a great question, and
Would anyone like to begin with a initial question or comment? Okay, go back.
Yes, square footage between the square and the other one.
And the square, you mean the two options, what is the square footage difference?
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, they're very similar as we show the plans currently. Oh gosh, I'm not sure I remember the total square footages off the top of my head. 5,100 and 4,900. The cross gable is 4,900. But I think it's worth pointing out.
The cross gable is 51.
Oh, sorry, I think I may have gotten it backwards. He should have answered this question. The cross gable, the one on the top, is 5,100 square feet. The simple rectangle is 4,900 square feet. But I think I should point out that if you look at the plans, there is storage shown on the cross gable lower level, but there's no storage shown on the simple rectangle lower level for no particular reason. But so they're both very flexible. They can both add or subtract square footage depending on how much you cut the lower level into the hill. So that number is actually very flexible and could actually be identical depending on how you lay out that lower floor.
Other?
So the idea of a cost of 1.6 million is for both. I mean, each was essentially 1.6. So
that's right. You know, we will be verifying, as we mentioned, with our cost estimator coming up and getting to that next level of detail. In fact, you know, what is the wall assembly, the roof assembly, what are the insulation levels, the mechanical systems, as we mentioned last time, we would anticipate all electric building, so it would be an air source heat pump system that would not have a fossil fuel backup. So there's some cost savings there in terms of having you know, a fairly simple, straightforward mechanical system. Did that answer your question?
yeah, that one. Yep.
Sorry.
Might be asking the same question. Does that 1.6 number include things like all the outside site work, landscaping, and also furnishing inside?
Yes, the 1.6 is intended as a total project budget. That includes an allowance for furniture, it includes a series of, it includes professional fees for the architects and the engineers, it includes permitting fees that need to be paid to the state and so on. So that is intended as the total number. Stephen has
I have to, it's the total number after we take the municipal building fund off the top.
That's right. Stephen just said that number includes the total after we take the municipal fund off of that total.
So that's not.
So the total number is $1.7 million, but we've got $100,000 in the building fund. If you take that off, you get to a 1.6 number.
Yes.
So first, I just really want to say thank you. As someone who's incredibly challenged by blueprints, your three-dimensional view is incredibly helpful, so thank you for that. Can you tell me how, so when I look at the library, since there's no dimensions on there, how does that compare to the space we have in the library now? Is it twice as big? Is it 1.5? Like,
So the square footage that is currently shown on both those plans is roughly 1,100 square foot or 1,200 square foot in that range. And I believe your current library is 750 square feet? No. 600 square feet. Okay, great, thank you. So it actually is almost twice the size. And I answered that question a little bit earlier to someone who approached us while you were eating pizza. And I also want to point out the library can also grow in that lower floor depending on how much you cut into the hill and how much you as a community want to pay for it to do so.
Back here.
This is a minor detail, but it can be quite costly. At the present, on either one of the plans, you're depending on the flooring system to support the vault. The vault is extremely, extremely heavy.
That's right.
A simple redesign of some load-bearing walls to carry that load down to the lower floor would save a lot of money.
The point was made, just so that everyone hears, the point was made that the vault needs to be structurally supported, which absolutely would be the case as we move forward. The fact is that the vault would be a 4-hour, it's required to be a 4-hour rated enclosure, and that would also mean the floor, as well as the walls, as well as the ceiling.
Fire rated.
Fire rated, 4-hour fire rated. So we would absolutely take that into consideration. We're looking at, to point out, as we move forward from this meeting, we're hoping to get direction and feedback as to, which way we are proceeding. And then as we move forward to present a building to you in March, we'll be considering all of these things, including the cost estimate that we're going to be receiving, materials and things like that. And even from that point forward, there's still be opportunity to sort of push and pull the building just a little bit as we refine it.
Well, most of the people here are just looking at the design and the layout, and they have no idea about
Right.
stuff like that, so it may not be presented at any other meeting, but it has to be addressed.
Yep, and it absolutely will be as part of the process. Yes.
Where's the document vault in each of these layouts?
The vault on the main level.
Yeah, on the main level, for the simple rectangle, the vault is right here. So this is where you enter. Yeah, we have spoken, as the design progresses and we get closer to the vote date, we will be delving into the design in greater detail. But we have had a preliminary conversation with the clerk about general arrangement of spaces.
Did you do the same for the cross?
Yeah, I was just about to do that.
I would just like to add a little bit to that the other officials at the town hall, and I know from the clerk's reaction as I was talking, she couldn't be here this evening because she's working, but we all have some questions about the ebb and flow of the way it would work. Now, that's just the interior.
Right.
I understand that, but on the first design, you have the copier on the other side of a wall from the town clerk, and that doesn't really work that well. There are a lot of doors in this one. You see, you have to go in a door, then you go in another door, then wherever else you're going, you go in a door. And although I think one of the things that in the change from the existing town hall to a new town hall, we all value is the fact that we will be able to have meetings that are somewhat private. I don't think we need too many doors to make that work.
Yeah.
The other part, that I have a question about is the size of the community meeting room. And I don't know, I mean, we have currently the firehouse and we currently have this room. And so what are we trying to build this meeting room for? I think that's worth a discussion.
It's definitely worth a discussion, and I'll take a piece of it, and I'll ask Peter to probably take a piece of it too, or maybe another member of the building committee. So the first piece is that if you look at those, this room can hold about 140 people. The fire station can hold about 75. And I have to say that the fire station, sort of by design, is not very comfortable, right? It's a very noisy space. It's a very it's a tiled floor. It's not a very comfortable space, and so this space is really meant to be the next step down, and to in the rare occasion where the select board or the planning commission or the where you have a good sized hearing, it needs to support that. And then the times when it's not being used for, if you will, town business, it can be used for community business. You name it. Is it the Knitters Club? Is it a yoga class? There are lots of things that space can be used for. One of the things that I think we don't do a good job at is utilizing our spaces that we have. Town hall sits empty, all weekend long. Here's a space where we can utilize it for to meet community needs. So one of the things that we ask them and what they've accomplished is, oops, I lost it. When the library's open,
That was me.
there you go. Who did it? There you go. When the library's open, the library can be accessed. But when it's not open, it can be closed, and you can still have access to the community space. So that's a big deal, right? So town hall can be closed, as it would be on a weekend. The library could be closed, which it may or may not be on a weekend. And we still have access to this part of the building. And it's that part of the building, you still have bathrooms that you can access, so it's still, so that's my first pass at it. Does any member of the building committee want to take a further shot at that?
I'll jump in just and maybe you can all help me too with this, but ideas that were generated from the committee, but also a lot of ideas came from the town survey that we got. Was it 225 people responded to that. And I think it runs the gamut, but you started to get at this, but things like if you picture presentations, which could be any kind of programming that the library does or anyone else wants to bring a speaker in. It could be for Taekwondo, it could be for scout meetings, it could be for crafts of things, it could be for rehearsal dinners for weddings. I know, Deb, you're interested
Or
in
weddings, why not?
Boat builders, Tai Chi.
So picture a setting you could have for dining events with round or rectangular tables. You could have it for seated events like they're presented here with a presenter or a film or whatever. And then social events of any sort.
The kitchen area. Oh, yep.
Where is that?
So that.
It'll be in your community space.
Well, currently we show a little kitchenette right here in the community space.
Oh,
It's
that
really a
is inside,
small-
but I think the idea is to have water source, and counter, yeah, some kind of for staging area.
Yeah, not a
For
first.
refrigerator,
an
yeah.
observation on that.
Refrigerator, water, some kind of work counter.
Yeah,
space.
so an observation on that, I'm a member of a group, and 2 or 3 times a year, we rent the Charlotte Senior Center for gatherings. And the primary reason we rent it is because they have a space similar to what you're proposing, but they have a lot more kitchen space. And we would, like our group would never consider renting this space because of the lack of kitchen.
Could I ask, is it a slightly separate room? You know, that is.
Nope, it's like if you take your community space there on the right, it would be basically, say, the south end of it, with the counter dividing it off.
Okay.
And we, just to be clear that, like, they say we can't use any of their kitchen stuff, but we can use their ovens, their counter space, their sinks, so.
Okay. Great. Did we answer your original question?
Yes,
I think this was Sam's question.
Okay, got it. Well, then we bounced it.
How many people is that designed to?
Approximately 50.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And just to your previous point about doors, we've actually had numerous conversations with the building committee about how open to make the town office area and how much privacy you might like to have. And so, absolutely, it's things that we're very much aware of that we would be bringing to you for further comment and review. So.
I think in reference to that, during our last meeting, we discussed the fact that nitpicking about where everything is right now on the inside is not necessarily, I mean, there's going to be eventually a real layout, deciding on layout. It's sort of just something there to make it look real.
That's the outside.
Yes.
John?
Just a couple things. I apologize, I missed the last meeting at work. I think this is a great idea, and I think this would be something that we could really use in our community. I would advocate for using Moncton contractors where possible. We've got a lot of talented people in this town. Maybe they're not interested. Maybe they are. I think they should at least get some conversation about that. You answered my question about the heating system. No fossil fuels. I think that's great. Fuel oil's the devil. I deal with it all the time. I know. And what is the? Do you have a mitigation plan for maybe mold in the basement with the library and all those books and your subterranean? Is there a plan for that, or is this too early yet in the stage?
I guess, John, the response to that would be that because the library is open to the west, we have the ability to daylight, a perimeter drain system very easily. So we would waterproof the easterly north-south walls, be open to the west. So we would not expect, and with a modern mechanical system to keep the humidity, you're going to be both heating and cooling with the same system. So that's yet another benefit of this air source heat pump system, is you get heating and cooling in one system at a very cost-effective way. So that would also take care of it, John, in terms of the humidity.
So I want to answer John's question a little bit about Moncton contractors. One of the ways we're considering going is hiring a construction manager. And if we hire a construction manager, it means that instead of bidding out the whole project, when we have schematics and construction drawings, we would be able to bid out individual pieces of it. And we would hope that would give a bigger opportunity for local contractors to get a bite of the apple, if you will.
Sorry. Thank you.
I'm curious, this is great, thank you. Thinking about 10, 15, 20 years down the road and Moncton's bigger, right? Or we have a need for more space. Is there one of these designs that is more suitable to an addition or kind of building off of it?
Yes. I think both of them could be added onto quite easily. In the cross gable, I think you could extend the wing quite easily. And in the simple rectangle, that's probably the easier of the two because you could just add a new gabled piece right off to either side, either the south or the north.
It's a great point. I mean, we have been discussing with the building committee that this should be considered in the context of a 100-year building. You don't know what the community is going to really look like in 100 years, but having quality construction and so on to make the building as timeless as possible.
Let me just add a little bit to that. In both cases, In both cases, we've assumed that some of the lower level is in the ground, is not going to be built out, but in both the cases, you could build out that as probably more storage space, not so much usable space.
So back to the floor plan and maybe not, you know, getting hung up on, go to the cross one, hung up on what but the idea of 20 years, town growing, I don't know what goes in the vault and what goes in a file cabinet, but it seems to me the vault isn't something that's easily expanded. That vault looks no bigger than the one we have today, so, and I have no idea.
It's a little bigger.
It just seems like if, you know, we've heard that, look, we already built and rebuilt that vault and we're already, you know, so it just seems like it needs a lot of thought about that. Because the other part I'm looking at here again, and I know you got work to do, but I see a few file cabinets way less than what they got now that we're trying to deal with.
Sure.
And so that means workspace, but that's okay. I'm just saying that we got 20 years of records in towns. I don't think every 3 years throw the records out.
Right.
And so there's like this space for records need appears to be a huge issue. And I don't really see it addressed here, but maybe it is. So I just bring it up.
That's a great point, Heather.
So the building committee has discussed this as well, and one of the things we have discussed is keeping the old vault and using that for historical records, and then being able to use the newer vault for current.
That negates the sale of the old building.
Say again?
That would negate the sale of the old building to try to offset some of these costs.
I'm not really sure what you're saying.
Where would the old vault go?
Remove the vault?
Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility of moving the vault from the old building to the new building and using it in the new building and then having.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that mobile.
I don't know, but I mean, you're moving a new vault in, and there's a possibility, while we hope to recycle some of those things that we already have.
The other thing we don't know is technology may change all of this.
Technology.
Yeah, but we apparently aren't headed that way today.
Was there a question over?
I was just, no, I was just gonna add that some stuff is being digitized. And
Yeah.
we could be doing more in Moncton if we want to get some more money to do it, but I think I think the clerk's office is doing some now, though. Putting this in.
Different topic. I noticed that tall windows in the west on both the designs, wonderful light. There are seasons and times of day when you're either blinded, scorched, or frozen.
Right.
And those three need to be taken care of with that design. And part of the glass design is good, but what would you do for the super bright? You gotta go, whoa, can't even see in here.
We completely agree with all of those points that you're making. We had a conversation at the break with a gentleman as well. We will be balancing the amount of glazing we have that's westerly facing.
Yeah.
We will absolutely have to have controls in place. Shades just can very simply, you can still have them perforated so that at that time of day, that moment, you know, when it's completely horizontal, you draw the shades. And also we'd be looking very carefully at the overall building envelope to make sure that we aren't overheating that space or overcooling it. And so, you know, those are really important considerations. Does the glass, in fact, come all the way down to the ground, as the gentleman was pointing out, on the lower level? Do we, you know, keep it up a couple of feet and so on, and still have that the effect and the impact of that transparency? So, absolutely, you can tint glass. You can have sections that are sort of fritted, if you will. That, you know, it would be almost like a frosted glass. You don't get the view, but it can also take care of the solar gain.
Chris, yeah, I just want to speak to that a bit because I have some experience at Champlain College. We built a new conference and event space, which is much larger, but it has entirely glass space to the west, looking out over the Champlain. And because I know this comes up a lot, it was not an issue. We had shades, and they come down and they let sunlight in, but it's filtered. It's like a very fine screen, so you get the sense you can sort of see outside, but it doesn't let the sun in. And what I can tell you is after you bring those down when someone's presenting, and that's in the background, and if you have to, you black it out if you're doing video or some kind of slideshow. But I can tell you that at some events we've done, you bring the shades down, but when the thing is over, people will literally, because of spectacular sunsets, they will gather and go up on the stage to take photographs. So my experience was this is not a problem, it was an asset. But you do have to address it.
I like the melding of the site and the line actions. Well, I just have a question about how close to the road. Both plans are a little different. It appears the longer one is going to sit a little closer to the road, the front of the building, and then the cross gable is a little further back to get that sweet spot. Yeah. Okay.
They're about 100 feet plus or minus each option. Yes, sorry.
Let's see. So your first couple of slides, you showed the inside pictures of the existing town hall, which is kind of the primary driver for this project. But what I don't have a sense of is, for the program space in the existing town hall, town clerk here, listers there, treasurer there, they each have a certain amount of square footage versus how much square footage they have in this new layout. So, like, how much is dedicated to town hall functions in this new design compared to the old one, and how's that broken up?
I think it would be, Will?
Maybe I'll start by saying that we did get, and actually this was a little bit before my time of getting on the committee, but I believe that a lot of the spaces that are identified in these two plans for the town offices as a whole was developed through, I believe it was Stephen and others going to the town office and talking with people that use that space to try to come up with what the sweet spot is for those functions. And that is the basis of what's in here now.
Okay, so I understand that, but I don't know, we're talking essentially a 5,000 square foot building. Of that 5,000 square feet, how much of that is new town hall space?
It's about 12 to 1,300 square feet, okay, just for the town office function.
So 25% of the new building would be?
So you're going to have, yeah, essentially, you're going to have the community room at about 700 square feet. You have the town office roughly, and we can provide, what I was going to say to respond initially was, we can provide onto the website, a breakdown of the exact spaces that comprise the overall. You then have a fair amount of space that is wall thickness, it's elevators, restrooms, the stair to the library.
Okay, I understand now. I'm going to keep you on task here.
Sure.
So 12 to 1,300 square feet for the town office functions. What does that compare to the existing building at this point?
Do you guys have the existing town office?
I don't know, in the back of my head, I don't.
I think it's 16.
Well, in one of the bathrooms.
Oh, I think the existing town hall is probably right around 1,200, but it's a good portion of that is the meeting room,
Right, that's
so-called.
sort of that's in the current program, which is now 700 square feet, that is outside of that.
Your number doesn't count the bathrooms.
No.
And so yeah, your 1,200 square feet counts the
Counts the
bathrooms
bathroom
and
and
everything.
everything.
And that's essentially the footprint of the building.
Yeah.
Whereas this, our number for these buildings does not include the bathrooms, the stairwells, the hallway.
Right. Did that?
Give me a rough idea. So if someone could take a guess as to what's the % increase in terms of working office space between old and new, what would it be?
I would bet you take 30%.
I would bet our current building, probably half of it is bathroom, meeting room, and the furnace room, or whatever you call it.
So you're saying 100%?
That's just a wild guess.
So you're saying 100% increase?
That's just a wild guess. I haven't paced it off or measured it.
I would question whether it was that much of an increase.
If you include the meeting room, I probably didn't include the vault.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do a program summary with each of the spaces, and we'll load that onto the website. I have a question back here.
Yeah, I was just looking at both layouts and feel that the southern side should, the common areas should be prioritized for the southern side. Like, don't put the vault on the southern side just because, what else is I think about? And like, I like the big glass wall, but like somebody was mentioning, would it be cheaper or the same cost to have just regular windows there, or was it, do you know?
Glazing and windows are more expensive compared side by side with an insulated wall. That's just, like this type of wall, it's clapboards and things like that, and it's wood frame. That wall is going to be less than the glass. For what we're talking about on the overall balance of the building, we're trying to balance, window sizes with solid wall. And that absolutely we'll be looking at as we move forward.
But I think if you're getting at, would it be less expensive just to put in 2 more double hung windows like we have on the rest of the perimeter? Yes, it would be less expensive, but I would argue that we're not addressing the concern that the building be inspirational as well.
Balance. Do we answer that? Did you answer your question? There's a question in the back. Sorry.
Yeah, you have a nice site plan. Have you done any feasibility for the septic or the building? If you be past the bond, we go into design stage and you find that you can't build the septic system or the building bearing capacity.
It's a great. Yeah, you must be in the building trade. Because these are really important. And yes, the septic system was previously approved. It's actually right. It's shown right here. This mound system. There was a replacement that's no longer needed at this point. We are looking into sharing the well, which is located right here. That's the church's well, and those conversations, I believe, are ongoing. The bearing capacity based on soils generally found in this area, we're not concerned at this point in time. We will definitely be looking at that as one of the things that we'll be initiating after a successful vote.
Me? Yeah. Oh, okay. Actually, I was just going to add on to other comments with the glass wall. Yeah. I think it's excessive.
Okay.
Only from the standpoint that, yes, you want nice views. That's a great point, and you want an aesthetic approach to it. But but at the same time, you don't need to see the sky, half of the sky at the same time.
Right.
And then try and heat that room and cool that room. And yes, shades are a great asset to that, but I buy shades for my customers. They're very expensive to cover a glass wall that size.
Yeah.
So, and they do wear down and they wear out. It's a maintenance cost that I'm concerned about. I think you can still achieve a lot of that glass and that inspiration in your the room. But what I saw in the picture seemed a little excessive.
Sure.
And expensive as well.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I was just thinking, a lot of the pictures you have, it really is very attractive, and hats off to you, you did a great job. But at the same time, I think that we also have a responsibility to a lot of people who are on fixed incomes in this community who will not necessarily share some of the visions in this group when it comes time to voting for it.
Right.
And we still have to maintain our thought and our processes to make sure that we do not necessarily take the dream that no one is willing to finance.
Right.
So in that respect, I'm a little concerned about the heat pump with no fossil backup when the temperature gets to 20 below zero against that much glass area.
Sure.
It won't be effective. I know, I've been into houses where I couldn't even get my drywall to dry.
Right.
So I have some of those concerns. The stone walkway, the wall, it's beautiful, but if there was a way to pare that down into something more natural, like stones set.
Absolutely.
My whole point is that it looks gorgeous, but is there a way that we can sort of make it a little bit more realistic? 1.6 million is a lot of money, and there's going to be other things that are going to come up that we are not aware of, and I think we need to have more space, more room to use those monies elsewhere.
Sure. Yeah.
That's just my comment for what I see.
Really important points, ones that we have discussed with the committee at great length. I mean, you and I spoke at the Strawberry Festival, and it is difficult. We're carrying, at this point in time, as we discussed at our last meeting, $275 a square foot as a starting point. If we were to take features like this and simplify, absolutely, this and simplify, I mean, maybe we could save $10,000 maybe by significantly changing this wall. So putting that into the order of magnitude of the overall project, yes, absolutely. We'll be looking at, we're showing standing seam roof, metal roof at this point in time because it's durable and it's a great starting point from the maintenance standpoint, but it's more than twice asphalt shingle roof. So to your point, and not to belabor it, but to your point about air source heat pumps, having a building, we've seen the technology get better year after year, and I mean, personally, I would really struggle to recommend a backup system on your building with where we're headed with climate change and so on. And I think that the systems are really performing much better than they were 5 years ago.
So I think we really need to do this right. And I love what you guys have proposed. I love both of them. I love this one more. And I think that we've been working on this for 10 years. This is the 4th time around, I believe. So we need to do some singing with this building, because we are not going to see anything like this in our lifetime. And it's just taken a lot of effort to get here. So maybe we kind of specifically take certain bits and do specific fundraising for that wall,
right.
or
Exactly.
something like that.
Yep.
So that's just kind of my general, wanting to move this forward. The other thing I want to say is that I do title search all over Vermont, so I'm in a lot of vaults. I'm in a lot of vaults.
Right.
New Haven is a great example of a very, very nice roomy vault.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a lot of filing cabinets in there with records that aren't necessarily needing to be in the vault.
Yep.
But why not? Because
Right.
then you have the space built, you have the storage of the filing cabinets, and as you fill it with more materials that may need to be in the vault, it doesn't do anything but displace a few filing cabinets that go elsewhere.
Right.
So I'm just suggesting that you overbuild that vault space.
Yeah.
Because Monkton right now is just bursting. I mean, it's very hard to work in that vault space right now. So just a suggestion.
These are great.
I had a question about accessibility for the outside of the building.
Yeah.
How is somebody in a wheelchair going to get to that lower patio area? Or down the stairs, like the external stairs don't look like they have a railing?
So we have the internal, two things. We have the internal elevator when the building is open. And then we also would envision, and here's another, again, from a cost standpoint, we're showing 21 parking spaces right here. Perhaps there's another 12 that can be done in the future. We would envision accessibility from this lower lot to the library if the upstairs were closed. But typically there'd be handicap parking right here, and then you would come into the main entry and then use the elevator.
Okay.
So the building would be entirely accessible.
So would it be accessible as of opening day, or not
Yes.
until that?
Oh, we have
lower
to
lot?
by code.
Yeah.
But to the outside? Because it looks like that path is for the future building part. So if I'm in a wheelchair, I can't get to the lower level until that parking lot is built. Is that
No, you
correct?
go through the inside of the
Without-
building.
But if the building is not open, if the elevator is down for whatever reason, because it happens, I can't get to that lower patio in a wheelchair until that future parking lot is built. Is that correct?
I see where it's going to hand.
Well, I was going to say that we mentioned that at the upstairs functions are closed, but the upstairs functions could be closed, but the main corridor is still open.
Right.
So so if there's something going on in the library and the upstairs is closed, that main corridor is still always open. There's bathrooms up there, and that's your main way to get in the elevator and go down.
Okay.
So on day one, you would have full accessibility to the whole building, and then you could go out. We'd want to make sure that the patio was, an even threshold, basically, so you can get out to it from the
But
library.
otherwise, you stated is correct.
So I would just encourage, if we want this land to be used to its maximum, that we add that path to begin with, because
maybe I want to bring family members, including an elderly person in a wheelchair, to this amazing view. Yes, just like you. I was looking out for you. I just have one more question about the well. You said that it was still, the conversation was still in works to share it with the church?
Yep.
So what happens if that doesn't work? How much is that going to cost, and is that been located where we can drill a well?
Will is raising his hand again.
Well, I wasn't going to answer the well question. I don't might be able to answer that, but I don't know what my question was anymore, actually. But I know we're having the conversations with the church, but obviously none of that is worked out at this point. That would be the least cost approach if it works out. A new well could be, I think like 10 to 20 grand type of thing. So we could be, of course I'm, might be conservative, but there's also a lot of different things that this municipal well needs to be, rather than just for your house. So.
So bringing it back to the conversation that Paul started, I guess I want to kind of support what you said about heat pumps with the way the technology is maturing. So I mean, I kind of agree with you that, with the caveat. I think the example that Paul was citing was when the building was in construction. He mentioned you couldn't dry out the sheetrock. So given that heat pumps are usually sized very tightly to the building heat load, where traditionally fossil fuel fired heating systems are oversized. I think Paul's statement is correct on that. I do want to challenge you on the analogy between the standing seam roof and the west-facing glass. The big difference between that is the standing seam roof, because it's has a much longer life versus asphalt, it will basically be a cost saver over time. The west-facing glass, because it has a much higher heat loss, is going to increase the operating costs of the building over time. It's going to have a higher cooling load in the summer, higher heating load in the winter. So I think that's a false comparison there.
Totally agree.
And then I also want to have a question on the septic system. You mentioned that the septic was pre-approved. So my question is pre-approved for what type of building capacity? I'm not sure if we were talking about a community room, and then so I guess what is the, so two questions. Was it pre-approved for the occupancy with the community meeting space, and was it, what is the building occupancy with the community meeting space and without the community meeting space?
So we would,
I was going to tell him, Roger, you can go look at the septic permit. It's up on our website.
No, I'm just asking a question.
Well, I don't know.
So we would be verifying the pre-approved design flows for that previously approved septic system and comparing it to this building. We have not gotten even close to that relative to the conceptual level that we're at now.
So I guess from a position of a former basically town official, I like it when questions are asked or information is presented concisely. So you really can't say we have a pre-approved septic system at this point in time because you haven't done that comparison.
We have a pre-approved septic system that was based on past designs that have been past projects that have come to the town for vote.
But it's not pre-approved for this design.
That's right. And
Good.
so
That's all I needed to hear.
Okay.
Chris, if I could address that, Roger.
It's an honest question.
Say, Roger, I was involved in getting that approved when we
Yep.
purchased the land.
Yep.
I could be off by a few gallons, but I think it's a 450-gallon system. You're required 15 gallons per person per day. That would allow 30.
30, yep.
Now, since that system was approved, at the time that was approved, there was a replacement system that was also spec'd out because that was the state law for septics at the time. They've since changed that. So if 30 is not enough, we can build another one. And if I'm right, they could go to 60. Okay? I don't see 60 people on a daily basis in that building. So I think we're okay. Sure, it's got to be looked at. But if we are short, with some more construction costs, we can double it.
I just want to make one comment too. So obviously we're doing this whole project a little bit differently this time, so we've hired the architect ahead of time. So Bellwether, we're paying for their services up to a certain point. And we've said that we basically have $20,000 to utilize your services, and the most efficient use of their services is to get us through the schematic design phase, conduct these basically sessions to try to get the input from the community. And then we're basically, so more or less turn the spigot off after that point. Once we get the bond approved, glass is full kind of thing. So if we got the bond approved, we would continue with Bellwether through the balance of their contract. And part of their contract, when they did their, when they answered our RFP and they put together a proposal, they have a whole list of consultants that are subcontracted under them, such as geotech, mechanical engineers, structural engineers. So there's a full team behind them to get this project through the full design phase. But in an effort to just, obviously we're not going to expel $94,000 before their bond. So we got to find that sweet spot. So we decided we have $20,000 allocated in this year for architectural services. It worked out that we could utilize these guys for the full schematic phase of work. So I just wanted to remind people that that arrangement we have with these guys.
Another aspect of this budget is because we're at this conceptual level, we're carrying a contingency of approximately $140,000 in this number, and that's proper planning, so that for things such as if the well, if we end up spending $15,000 on a well that is not, that's where the contingency comes into consideration.
So, I think we talked about this last time for a bit, but we have all this here, capital costs and so on. But now, there's got to be a significant, in my mind, a significant difference with this and what we plan to do with operational costs. And we'll before we vote, we have some notion of what an average yearly operational cost. I mean, for this building to be used as much as we're talking about the size of it, I perceive at least a person, one day a week being a custodian, somebody who knows the heating, folks probably now with the existing town hall, get the shovel and just get a bunch of the dirt out after a spell, takes their time, but this is going to be a whole different scenario in a maintenance. But beyond that, the duct system, I don't know, whatever you've got, all the things that are going to, we just don't have today because we don't have much of a facility, right? So we're going to have our bond payment of 100, 110 first year, 80 down to 80s. But are we going to have $5,000 a year, $10,000 a year? What's that operational cost going to look like moving forward?
Additional operation.
Well, I'd like to see both if it was right. But what is the operational cost?
And wasn't it your understanding that those duties fall under the select board chairs?
I need to see that. I mean, it's a cost that is raised by the. It's part of the cost of this building.
Yep. Yes, I totally agree. It can be difficult to put a pin on it because of the variability of how often the building is used, and that sort of thing is a big variable. But
one of the selling points here is that it's going to be highly used.
Yeah,
so I think that assumption is the assumption that goes is that it's highly used.
Yes, agreed.
Just a point on the well thing, which may be more for the committee than for you guys, but it's been a lot of years since I've actually drank the water out of that church, probably 4 or 5, but the last time I had it, it was pretty sulfurous. And I don't know if that's still the case or if it comes and goes, but somebody may want to look into that, or maybe there's somebody here who does that more frequently than I do.
I own the house, 2 houses, 2 lots north of the church. And when I bought the house, the I don't know, the deed, I guess it's called, came with, I think, 10 years of water testing, because the structure across the street from the church used to be a gas station, and it leached into the ground, so the ground has to be tested for benzene. My water always tested good, but I'm north of the church, north of that lot. The church water did not pass the test, and for a lot of years I would see the water truck come for them and for the neighbors across from the church and even the people across the street from me. I don't know how long the testing lasted for other people. I didn't need the testing because my water always came up good. When we, the town, decided to buy this lot, I suggested that maybe we should spend 10 grand or whatever it was to drill a well and find out if we can even drink the water there before we spend $90,000 to buy land that we can never use. The reason, I'm assuming, the reason that that person was generous enough to sell the land to the town was because he can't develop it, because you can't drink the water. I don't know if you can drink the water at the church. I don't know if they get their water tested anymore. I don't know if they're just drinking water that's not tested. But before we start feeding it to ourselves, we might want to test it.
Yes, absolutely.
And if we discover that we can't drink the water, then what are we going to do?
Then, yeah, if the church well doesn't work out, we would be seeking locations on the parcel for a new drilled well with professional advice as to where that would go. You'd have to be a certain distance, from the septic system, of course, and so on. And to pre-drill a well, actually, without having located the building would really be potentially problematic, because, then you're not sure where you're going to ultimately place the building. Is there a question or comment?
On the well, sure, but for the timeline, can we go to that slide real quick? So I was just wondering, we're going to be bonding this March for the $1.6 million with a 10% contingency in there. When do you expect construction to happen in your timeline? That's $1.6 million now money, in 2 to 4 years. I don't know what that, because I can't read it from back here.
Right. The intent is definitely not to have you read it. I mean, basically, this is the March line right here. We would have just a couple of months to refine the design from what's presented, because again, there is this balance. Like we're not able to start over with a brand new design, so we've got a really good starting point. We have the direction on the funding, and we then have permitting to do. The permitting here is reasonably straightforward. You don't have Act 250, so you have water supply, wastewater permitting, and we're not expecting stormwater permitting because of the size of the site and the size of the impact. And so we would be looking at, and this also relates to the delivery method of the construction manager, which may allow us to sort of accelerate the process a little bit. But we would be looking at starting construction in the August timeframe.
Next year?
Yes, of 2020. Yes. And then the duration of the construction, probably, roughly 9 months to 9 to 11 months, something like that. Other?
My question or comment is more towards the building committee. The people in this room pretty much all support one of these plans, including myself. I don't want to see the vote go down, and I think there's a lot of work to be done to sell it. And one of the things I think really shocked me and surprised me was when all of a sudden it was a community center, which is great. We need it, we want it, it's great for the town. We are a small percentage of the people that are going to vote on town meeting day. And the whole plan started because we needed a new town hall and town space. And now I feel that the focus is on the community piece, the library piece, which if you can sell it that way, that's great, but I don't think you can. I think that you've got to put a little more focus on what you started out with that was voted down twice. I think that there's just so many things that have to be answered before people are going to vote for it. One being that, the part that you showed where they, were going to be retiring this debt because of the truck. Well, we might retire that debt, but that debt's still going to be on something else. So it's not fair to say that we're going to gain that money, because we're not going to gain that money. That money is going to be going for a grader, another truck, or something. So my comment is to the building committee of how to bring that forth and get the people who may not be interested in that community center, but may be interested in the town part of it, the office building and stuff. And so that would just be.
Anyone on the committee want to address that or not?
Well, maybe I'll start by saying that's certainly a big question that we grappled with quite a bit with the building committee. And I personally, I go back to the thought that, well, I feel like we're doing this project a different way in the sense that we're trying to build this project through input from as many community members as possible. So rather than maybe the previous plans, and I apologize if anyone was on the previous plans, but the previous sets of plans were, you know, the town didn't pay for those plans. They went out to bid, and a design builder came in and said, this is what I think you need, select board, and the select board said, all right, let's try to push this through. So in one sense, I think that we're, the way that we're delivering this project to the community is different, and I hope that that would help gain a little bit more support. And then I think that there's another side to it. The other side is, well, if we don't put a community space in here, if we don't do a library, then we'll probably lose votes that way too. So trying to find, you know, what we told the architects here is it needs to be as efficient from an energy standpoint, but also from a cost standpoint. You know, we've done a lot to try to pull this design to a very, you know, compact, best use of the land, and through the couple community sessions that we've had to try to get the community to design this building and not be the architects design this building, although they've done quite a bit of work. But that's I'll leave it at that. That's my sense on the building committee.
As a member of the building committee, I have to tell you that the evolution of this started out as, okay, we're doing the town hall, we're doing the library. We have this beautiful piece of land. That's an amazing piece of land. A community room with access to that beautiful property and using that property would be good. And it sort of just molded into the concept of a community center. It's still the town hall. That includes the library and the community room. It's just that we thought we would term it a little bit, because it's hard to say the town hall, the library, the community room, whatever. You know, let's make, what do we want to call it? The municipal building, the community town hall, what do we want to call it? But basically, the whole evolution became, why waste this beautiful piece of land, just plop a square building on it with back to the views, so we can have a town hall? When we need a new library, and we could use a community center, and my dream is the community center would become a revenue builder for the town to pay for the building. If you rent out that community room with that view 2 or 3 times a month or more, you're going to start getting a little money back. And I know I would use it for small events. And that's sort of how it all came about.
So I'd suggest it's 8 o'clock. We've been here for a couple hours. We've had some pizza. If you guys could take, we'd love to have your scribbles on those things back if you're willing to give them up. We have extra copies so you can take them home. But we'd love to get your input. You know, tell us, oh, I love this piece. Oh, I think this would be a much better way to do it. Whatever you think we really need to hear. We'd love to hear, and so we'll collect all those up. The building committee is going to meet on the 25th to try and review those and try and narrow it down from cross gable and simple rectangle to let's do this.
And we would recommend for those who couldn't make it out tonight, talk to your community members and provide some feedback through the building committee if at all possible, if there are others out there, as was pointed out. And thank you all for coming out on a weathery evening.
Instead of having the building committee try to interpret our scribbles, they have an email address which we can...
Building at MonktonVT.com. goes directly to every member of the building committee.
Is it on the website?
And don't forget everybody to
It
go
is.
see the Music Man at Mount Abe tomorrow night, Friday, Saturday.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Extra pizza, if people want to take a slice home, please do so.
Building@monktonbp.com, just like your A lane at monktonbp.com, but you don't need it.
Has an address that can't.
I know.